going to get this thing rolling. So in the first part of the visualization builder, part 1, we went over dashboards, dashboard layouts, and the assignment of those. There will be a brief review on the dashboard layouts as well, because we're going to go over now in this part the building of assessments, the building of assessment tables, history tables, and monitors. So 3 separate parts of the assessment builder, and we'll talk about the differences there and how to build some assessments. So to get over into the Viz Builder, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my side menu, and I'm going to bring myself into Admin Portal underneath the administration tools. I'll come in here and jump into Settings, Visualizations, and Build Visualization as the step 1. So once this loads up, I have my 2 choices. We went over dashboards last time around, so we'll jump into assessments this time. So I'll click on that to bring myself to my menu of assessments. You can see we have a couple assessments that are existing in the system that are widgets in the front end, reference for nutrition data and wellness questionnaire data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the building of a couple different assessments to show the differences here. So I'm going to select to create a new assessment. There's fewer assessment options than there are dashboard options, but you can still do plenty of different things with them. Current aggregate assessment is going to be very similar to that current aggregate dashboard. Instead of getting a line or bar graph that you can aggregate sum, max, min, or average, you just get a number over your chosen period of time, whether it's the last few days, last weeks, months, or years. It's up to you. Data value assessment's the simplest one. It's the most common assessment that we have because it's just a simple display of a value. You can throw thresholds on it. So if it's a testing value, that's where you would go with it. And then the other ones is here. It's a difference assessment. Just shows how you can show difference versus previous recorded values. Questionnaire sum is fairly simple. You choose your questionnaires questions, just like our daily wellness sum. You can go ahead and choose any questionnaire that has a monetary or numerical value to it and sum those question fields and display that. And you can also run trends on that as well. RPE assessments can show you training stress balance or RPE calculated from an exertion and duration field. Training stress balance, again, just 3 of very similar RPE and training stress balance assessments there for you. And then a trend assessment, which is the last one, which again is just a way to show another difference or percentage. So there's a lot of overlap with these, just some of them operate a little bit differently. So the ones I'm going to cover for this one, I'm going to cover the current aggregate, the data value, and I'm going to cover our difference assessment because they're the 3 most common. They're 3 at the top of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and for this one, I'm going to go vertical jump for my current aggregate assessment and select that. Now it brings me to my assessment builder. It's going to look very similar to my my dashboard builder. I can give it a label, which I'm just going to keep vertical jump. And I grab my field. So we're in there. So now that I have that, I choose my time period that I want to grab. So this time period is directly tied to the number of periods and how you're going to aggregate it. So I'm going to say I want to see an average vertical jump or maybe the maximum vertical jump over the last 12 months as my assessment. So I can say, there we go. Last 12 months, I want the maximum all values. And there you go. You've got your setup. The last thing here is selecting an icon, which doesn't typically matter unless you're going to be using an assessment monitor. So you select the icon. You need to do it. You can grab anything that you'd like, anything that you think would be that's going to look like in the menu. Default color of the assessment, I always set it to white. It's just the easiest to look at. And then you can set thresholds based on certain normative values or anything like that you wanted to look at. And there's no limit to how many assessments you can use. So say greater than 0 is going to be red, greater than 12 is going to be yellow. And then if you jumped over 20, I want to see green. And then we'll just keep it there, keep it simple. And that will be reflected in any assessment tables, assessment history tables, and it will also be reflected within an assessment monitor. So you can see that and go from. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to keep that assessment and use it later. So it's nice and simple to aggregate your data the way you want to. And there's really there's endless options of how you can do that. You can see the average, min, max, oldest or newest, depending on what you're looking for within a certain time frame. So jumping out into number 2, we'll do this one as broad jump. And I'm going to go to my data value assessment. This is the simplest assessment. It's the most readily available assessment. It's just easy to throw a table together with these because really all you have to do is select a title, a field, and then you choose your options on what you want to see. So if you don't want to show the value, so maybe you're just focusing on assessments. So maybe you have a weight monitor up in your gym and you don't want anybody to see the numbers that were recorded. You just want to see thresholds on what the weight was. So you can leave that unchecked and all you'd see is colors that you selected instead of a number. If you do want it to be the value to show, we check that box. And then the second option here, use latest value. It's really if you're going to go the difference between a daily monitor to see if there's completion done, a history table, because if you leave this unchecked, you will see the history, or just a latest table. So you just leave that checked and it doesn't matter when it was recorded. It will show the latest value that was recorded within the system over any given time frame from the beginning of time if you want it to. It'll search for it, find it, and display that value for you. So for this case, I'm going to leave this unchecked for this one because I'm going to put this in a history table on a monitor so I can see if they've done their test for the day. I'm just going to grab an icon here of my little guy, and I'm going to set it as white. And since I'm showing the value, I'm not going to set any thresholds on it. I just want to see a hard number for this one. And there you go. There's your build. Nice and easy. We save it, and it's done. It's ready to be used, put into tables and monitors. And then last but not least, the third one I'm going to create and go over here on this webinar is just going to be our difference assessment. Again, these are just going to be ones that highlight differences or the common used assessments here. So I'm going to go back to broad jump because I want to see the change over time in my broad jumps. So for my difference assessment, I select that. Again, give it a title. I'll just copy and paste. Difference from previous. We'll go with that. So we'll grab our field. And then this box here, you use most recent value instead of today's value. That's going to give you, if you're doing a history table, a ton of values because it's just going to compare most recent value over and over and over again. So I leave this unchecked most of the time because if I enter a value on, say, March 9th and I want to compare it to February 9th, it's going to compare to that value versus comparing March 9th to March 8th or whatever it may be. We don't want to do that. And then we want to compare against any values with our difference assessment. So you can compare your difference between training group values if you'd rather, instead of seeing change over time, maybe you want to see, are they positive or negative versus the training group values. And it'll take an average of your training group or team value or position value and give you a difference. I'm going to do self. And comparison is difference. So this is just simple arithmetic, simple math, a percentage difference, a percent change, the percentage of the compared value versus percent change of the value. And then you can do standard deviations as well. We're going to do a difference to compared value. Keep it nice and simple. These you can leave completely blank if you just want to see a value. But say you only want to see values from 2023 and you don't want to compare to 2022 values, I can go ahead and say I want to exclude values before January 1st of 2023. And then last but not least, I'm going to select what do I want to see? Do I want to see the value or do I want to see the comparison? Since the difference assessment, I want to see the difference. So I'm going to select that. You can display as many or as few decimals as you want. So say if I set 0, it's down to the nearest whole number, nearest 10th, nearest 100th, you name it. Again, I'm just going to grab an icon. This one's going to be a megaphone. And now this one, I'm going to leave this box checked, apply thresholds to comparison value. What I want to see is if it's a negative number, if you've gone down, I'm just going to give it to an endless threshold. I want to see it's red if it's negative, it's yellow if there's no change, or if it's 1 or greater, if you've gone up, I want to see it to be green. And that way you can tell at a quick glance on a monitor or anything like that, did they improve or did they not? Save that, and we're all good. So that's right. On that. All right, so we'll save it. It's a good thing it gives you that warning message, let you know. All right, so we X out of there. So now I've got a few assessments to work with. I'm going to skip all the way down here on the side visualizations menu to assessment layout. So this is where I put this all together. All right, so I have a few options. I can edit an existing table if I have. So I have some basic assessment monitors in here, performance training, or a team summary, or I can create new. So here's your 3 options. You can have a monitor, a table, or a history table. Now, a monitor is something that it would be, for example, we've had some college coaches put daily wellness questionnaire, sums, weight change and weigh in, weigh out, stuff like that, whether or not they checked in, just up on a TV screen in their office so they can see if his guys did what they were supposed to do today. And if there's any attention that needs to be paid, say somebody lost a ton of weight, you might want to go talk to them or talk to one of your coaches to go talk to them. That's what a monitor is used for. So I'm going to create that. And I'm just going to say this is our wellness monitor. Now you've got a couple different options. Fade on complete, something that's rarely used. When it's done and somebody's completed all the assessments for the day and they're filled out, it disappears. That's decent for attendance, so you can see who still hasn't done their stuff. Minimal just kind of squeezes things down. If you have a large group, you want to save space, you can do minimal. And then scale is just usually always checked because it'll just fit to screen. If you've got 2 people versus 20 people, it'll scale the screen so that every athlete on your list that you've selected shows up. And I from here can grab from my created assessment. So I can grab anything that I wanted to grab from what I've made earlier or any different wellness questionnaire things that I wanted to see. So I'm going to start with my wellness sum. There we go. And then maybe I want to see some pain and soreness in my athletes. I'll grab that. And then we can talk options. What have you completed? So we'll just populate that with what we want to see essentially over what our athletes have done. And then you're good to go. You can do up to 6 assessments on any given monitor, and it'll show the icons that you've selected when you're building those assessments. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back to showing what that monitor looks like in a little while. I just want to talk about the difference really quickly between a table and a history table. It's really simple. If I go to create a table, all it's going to do is going to show me a table of if I've chosen latest value assessments on my data value assessments, it'll just always shows those values. Or if I'm testing on a certain day and I want to see on a grid or a group table or anything like that, who's done similar to a monitor, but this one can be put into a dashboard layout. You can do that for a table. And it's just going to show one value per metric chosen, which is the difference between the table and the history table. So I have one value. I want to see my jumps. I'm going to put in my vertical jump, current aggregate assessment, my broad jump, data value assessment, and then my difference assessment. If they have multiple values put in for any of these, you're good to go, and you'll be able to see that on your table. And again, it'll just show a snapshot in time, essentially. If these weren't filled out, the data value assessment and the broad jump weren't filled out today, there will be no data in there. That current aggregate assessment, since it's taking an average or the max of my vertical jump for the last 12 months, that will always have a value in it because it's looking back 12 months unless you've never tested that athlete. So I save it. I'm good to go with my table, just named jumps. And then last but not least is my history table. There's just a couple different options. So I create that. I'm just going to do jump history instead. Now, you can leave description blank. You can select a number of days, and that's just how far back in time you want to go. So you can realistically go back 1,000 days. You can go back as many years as you want. I'm going to say latest year, number of days, 365. If you do skimp empty days, if you leave this 0, what it's going to do is basically it's going to give you a column for every day that you've chosen. So if you only care about days that there was value entered or that there will be a difference assessment, I always just do equal so that I only see what I want to see and I don't have a bunch of empty boxes to scroll through. That could be different in a case where you want to know when a guy had practice values versus a day that they had off of practice. It's nice to reference that so you can keep that in mind as well. I always hide icons with my history tables because it gets a little cluttered. If you have an icon and a title and a raw value for something, it's going to show you 2 rows for it. So I hide the icons. And then last option is reversing the days. And you're doing that. When you turn that on, it just goes newest first. If you leave it unchecked, it goes oldest values first, and you can scroll to the newest ones. So again, I'm going to go ahead and throw my jumps in there. My vert, my broad jump, and my broad jump difference. All right, so I'm good to go there. I've got my history table. Now, there's 2 different things now that you can do with this. The monitor is ready to go. You can bookmark it. You can throw it up on a TV, and you're fine. The tables, the history table and the regular table need to be thrown into a dashboard layout. So I'm going to do that first, and then we can jump into the monitor too. So I'm going to jump into my dashboard layout. It's an assessment table. there is no rules versus who you can assign it to. So you can assign it to an individual and a group with every type of assessment table in there, and it'll show you a grid versus a one-column table for your athletes. So there's no limit to who you can assign to or how many people you can assign assessment tables. If you remember the dashboards, that was a little different. We have individual and group dashboards that are different. There's no worries with that here. So if I go to my Athlete Central group default and I want to see my team jumps, I can go half width and put it right next to my jump history so I can see stuff over time. There we go. They're popped onto my dashboard, and I can do the exact same thing now after to go. I can do the exact same thing with my individual default dashboard, and I didn't have to change anything. And I can just go ahead and throw my jumps in there just like I did, and it'll only display the individual's data versus the group's data, depending on who you choose. So save that. These are already assigned, but remember, if they aren't, you go to this Assign Dashboard Layouts tab, and you can jump in and throw it on any team group or training group. They're already all set. So I'm going to go ahead and do two different things. I'm going to open up a different tab for my monitors so you can get a glimpse at what those look like. I'm going to open those up because these, again, can be just bookmarked and thrown up onto a TV screen. So they're ready to go. You don't have to assign them to anybody. So if I open this, for example, this is our default assessment monitor that we have. Once this loads up, it's going to grab our training group data from whoever is default chosen. As a default, if you don't have it configured in a tab, it's just going to grab your top training group. So you can see here, this can be thrown up on a TV screen within your office, and you've got your 4 athletes that you want to look at, and you can see here's your questionnaire sum at the top. This guy weighed in and weighed out. There was no change, so this value doesn't change. This is his initial weigh-in, his post-workout weight, and if there was a difference, that would display, but he didn't lose any weight, so we wouldn't see that. But you can also, within this, if you have this pulled up, you can go ahead and select different groups. So if I grab my, see what this looks like with a larger group, I've now filtered by my extra demo group. It's going to go ahead and grab and look and see if I have any data for them. It might take a minute. There we go. So it's going to grab that whole group, and you can see it scaled to the screen because I have a bigger group. And this one, everybody's orange because they haven't done anything yet. So as a coach, I'm upset now, right? So this might be what it looks like when you walk into the office in the morning. And then as people start to file in, you'll start to see numbers populate. You'll start to see different colors change. You know, if they did their pre and post weight, that would start to populate. But you can just leave this, set it, and forget it because it automatically refreshes your training monitor I believe every 30 seconds. It's going to refresh and look for more data to make sure that you don't miss anything throughout the day. So if you're sitting doing your work and you peek up there, you can see what's going on. There you go. You got that auto refresh happening at the top. Nobody's filling out data right now, so it's just going to refresh to the same thing. Last thing with monitors, what you can do, you can go ahead and change a date. So if you want to see a point in time and see how people did on a previous day, you can look back. Say you want to see yesterday, go ahead, pop in and look at yesterday, and it'll bring that up. Again, nobody did anything yesterday too, so I'm upset as a coach. All right, so now we'll show you the tables as they're built, just to show you the difference between what it looks like for a group and what it looks like for an individual on your table and your history table. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with my group dashboard. So my Stallions demo is my group I'm selecting. I want to view my group dashboard. And on this group dashboard, there wasn't already an existing, this is a latest table. And this one, these assessments had that box unchecked to show latest value. So these will only populate with the current day's value when a date value is entered. And it's the same thing with the questionnaire sum as well. So this table in the morning would be gray, just like your assessment monitor was empty, and it would start to fill up as you go. And now you can see, here's my group. I have everybody all the way down, and I can see what their vertical jump was. Broad jump, I left unchecked so that we're not going to see data unless there was data entered today, just to show you the difference between this would show latest value. This would show max over the last year. This is to show today's value. And then if there was a difference today, we can see that previously. And then also on our group assessment table, you can see I've got all the way back to, I've got tomorrow's data in there as well. All the way through into the future there. And you can typically scroll with these tables and you're good to go. Now on the group dashboard, if you want to dial down individual, you can also do that by just, instead of backing out, just click on the avatar picture. You can go to their dashboards immediately. And this will show you just the difference between the group dashboard table or assessment table versus the individual. So this athlete, again, had an existing table in here for different performance training. And then you've got their jumps here as well. So this is just their individual data, their individual history table, and they're done from there. So that's all set, just to show you the difference of what that would look like. And again, this is just showing 365 days, so it's a little busy. Obviously, you typically wouldn't do that. And that really is it as far as dashboards go, or assessments go. The last thing I'll show is I'll just really touch just a quick review on how to bookmark a monitor, because you can configure it different ways, just before we open it up for you for questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to devices really quickly. And on this assignment screen to bookmark, you don't really have to create a new device, and I'll show you what it means. There you go. You don't have to create a new device, because really what you're looking for is the URL of the bookmark. The bookmark is, once it's set up and the URL is given to somebody and copied and pasted into your address bar, you don't have to worry about logging in, and it's exactly what you want it to be every single time. So it can be set onto your iPad's home screen, your tablet's home screen, your phone's home screen if you want it to, or you could just leave it as a bookmark on your computer. So what you're doing here on this one is you're selecting a training group. If you don't select anything, it'll just choose everybody for your bookmarks. So I just want to show my Stallions demo team. You can select a specific position if you have positions in your organization. You can either show inactive athletes or not. Typically, this would be left unchecked for an assessment monitor. And then you can make these settings configurable or not. So if you want the athletes to be able to change training group, or you want anybody to be able to change the training group on this bookmark, you can leave it yes. If you want it hard set for a certain training group and sorting and everything like that, you say no, and it takes away those tools. And then on what you would like to see, you scroll down and you've got your assessment monitors, and you can go ahead and say, I want to see my assessment monitor sorted by last name, and it'll generate a URL for you, and you're good to go. So refresh, it's going to give you a little preview of what it's going to look like. And like you can see, we've got our assessment monitor that we had in the front, but this one you can leave up and you can give the URL to other devices. So you don't have to worry about logging in, opening it up. All you have to do is click on the bookmark and you're set. So if you open it in a new window, you can copy and paste it from here, or you can copy and paste it from your address bar once it opens up in that new window, and you're set. You've got your new assessment table, and you can go ahead and give that link to everybody, or your monitor rather. So that's a wrap. That's the the high level look at assessments, how to build a few assessments, put them in a table and a monitor, and how to distribute them and how to use them. We use this time for questions, and otherwise we can call it a day, and we'll see you guys next time.